going live here. Let me know if you can hear me in the comments. Let me see if I am connected on my end. Let me know if the audio is coming through before we get into anything. Okay. Hello, hello. How's the audio? Any feedback on the audio? Can you hear me? What's up, everybody? Can you hear me? Audio's great. Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I'm doing a late night Q&A here. Usually do them in the afternoon while my kids are at school, but they're back from school now. So I decided to do one late at night while they are sleeping. Yeah, y'all are asking me to do these live videos at different times of the day, because everybody has different schedules. The Earth has all these crazy time zones, right? Let's see here. Hold on, I'm having some technical errors on my end. Let's see if I can get that sorted out. Give me just 1 minute, and then we'll get into the questions. All right. Sweet. We got a question from Tyler who says, I keep getting guillotined when I shoot for takedowns. Any advice on guillotine defense? Yes, fix your posture. If you are getting guillotined when shooting for a takedown, it's probably because you're shooting with broken posture. Here's what broken posture is. Every time we say posture, what happens? Everybody stands up straight and tall. They puff out their chests. And yeah, that's sort of it. But fight posture is a little bit different. That means your head, your neck, your spine, and your tailbone are all aligned in a straight line. So imagine this is your spine, your head, neck, spine, and tailbone, all in a straight line. All right, so that's good fight posture. That's good fight posture. Even that is good fight posture. But imagine the head is tilted over, right? Bent over like this, or twisted this way, or the head is pointed in a different direction than the hips. Those are all broken posture. So generally what happens when you're getting stuck in a guillotine off a shot is you're looking down. So eyeballs up when you shoot. Practice this. When you're doing your shadow wrestling, look up at the lights. Look up at the lights. Lift your eyeballs up when you shoot. When you level change, eyes up. Body goes down, eyes go up. That's going to fix your posture a lot. Then, when people try to grab you in that front headlock, try to guillotine choke you, you can turn that into a handle to lift them up. Again, keep those eyeballs up, and then you can dip them over and use that handle that they give you to your advantage to make your double legs even more powerful and more successful. So fix your posture. You're going to fix a lot about the double leg takedowns. That's a great question. Is it worth going for a double or single leg takedown against heavier opponents? And if so, which one is more effective? Yes. And if it's not working out for you, work your wrestling. Probably the more effective takedown, in my experience, against larger, stronger opponents is going to be a single leg takedown, because it's just going to be easier to get your hands on one leg than two. But, man, work both. But single leg takedowns, there are also many, many, many ways to finish a single leg. So, yeah, man, work your singles as well as your doubles. We got a super chat from Vincent. Why was Boss Rutan such a good striker? Followed by another super chat from Caleb we'll get to in just a moment. Why was Boss Rutan such a good striker? Okay. I won't disagree with you. Yeah, he was absolutely skilled at striking, and I think it had a lot to do with his background. He competed in multiple different rule sets, without gloves, with gloves, open hands, closed hands. So diverse experience definitely played into that. Let's see here. Caleb says, Does knuckle hand size matter in punching power? It's not insignificant. It's not insignificant, but it's... Where does punching power come from? And it's a ton of different factors. Like, it's a ton of different factors. It is how you move your body. It is forward momentum. It is, I mean, Jack Dempsey gives you an awesome list, like 6 different things right at the opening of his book where punching power comes from. The falling step, gravity, the shoulder whirl, that's pulling the opposite shoulder back from the punching hand. A bunch of different body mechanics, right? If you really want to understand punching power, you can try this little drill. Stand in front of a heavy bag, and without moving anything in your body except the arm, just arm punch it, right? And then add the front shoulder to it, then add the front and the back shoulder to it, then add the hip to it, add the feet to it, add steps to it, and you're going to notice that the more of your body you're able to put into a punch, the more punching power you're going to have. Now, this doesn't seem to have much to do with your question about hand size, right? Generally, if you have bigger hands, you're a bigger person. If you have smaller hands, you're a smaller person. This isn't always true. There are some pretty big, tall guys with tiny little hands, and some fairly small people with big hands, but generally speaking, hand size is proportionate to the body. Not always. I remember I fought a dude who was fairly small but had pretty big hands, and the guy could hit pretty hard, but I don't think it was so much because of his hands. It was the fact that he had really good body mechanics for punching. Now, we had a super chat from, let me back up here. Don't want to miss that one. Something about karate combat. Ben wants to know my thoughts on karate combat. You know, I haven't watched a full karate combat event. I've seen some highlights. I've seen the trailer for the sporting event, and it looks like fun. Looks like good times. Are they showing that on YouTube? I would be interested in watching some of those if they're showing those on YouTube. If not, let me know where I can watch Karate Combat. I would be interested to give you a more in-depth review than it looks kind of cool and it looks kind of fun. It's always interesting how if you change or tweak the rules a little bit, you can change what the sport looks like a whole lot. Some time ago, some people asked me what I thought about, what's that karate style? There's this fairly modern Japanese karate style. No, not Kudo. Taito, that's the one, Taito. And whenever I review one of these styles on YouTube, I generally look at the sparring and tell people what I think about the sparring. And I was kind of shocked to see that the sparring of Taito forms were it was very similar. They were using a lot of these movements they also used in the forms, which kind of surprised me. Until I talked to a Taito practitioner who said it's specifically because of the rules of competition. In competition, you are rewarded more points for using the form-specific techniques, which is why the sparring looks like the practice and not just crappy kickboxing. So, yeah. What else do we have? Question about head trauma and boxing. Okay, Frost wants to know, how should I go about boxing and kickboxing if I don't want long-term head trauma? Should I never step into the ring or just keep it to a minimum overall? Well, if you want to avoid head trauma, then boxing is probably not the ideal sport, because that's all it is. It's getting punched in the head at the end of the day. Punched in the body too, but man, you take a lot of damage to the head. So it's one of those things where you got to choose your sacrifice. Mandrake says, dude, you bald. Here's some interesting facts about baldness. By age 20, about 20% of all men go bald. I was one of those. By age 40, about 40% of all men go bald. By age 60, it's about 60%. By age 80, it's about 80%. It kind of goes up proportionally with age, percentage-wise. It's weird how that happens. But yeah, man, I think I was one of the lucky ones, going bald early. Man, I went bald like 20 years ago. And why am I lucky? I'll tell you why, because I didn't spend 20 years worrying, oh no, my precious hair is falling out. Okay, we got some super chats. Let's check these out. First one comes from Caleb, who says, why couldn't Hackney seriously hurt Yarborough? Talking about Keith Hackney versus Emmanuel Yarborough in, was that UFC 3, UFC 2, UFC 4? One of the early UFCs they fought. Keith Hackney was a karate practitioner, and Emmanuel Yarborough, a very large, like 600-pound sumo wrestler. Why couldn't Hackney seriously hurt Yarborough? Well, we have a 600-pound man versus a much smaller man. How big was Keith Hackney? I think he was somewhere around 200 pounds, maybe less, but a massive, massive size difference. I think Hackney did a lot of damage in that fight. He broke his hand hitting Yarborough so many times. He opened the match with what appeared to be a wild palm strike. Hackney came out with this wild palm strike, like an overhand palm, hit Yarborough in the face, knocked Yarborough on the ground. Hackney jumped on him and then started doing hammer fists and turned into a crazy scramble. And yeah, Hackney jumps on top of Yarborough and throws the hammer fists until the fight's over. So to say that Yarborough wasn't hurt, that's a bit of an understatement. Seriously hurt, though, well, if you're looking for a knockout, a lot of the knockouts we see where somebody gets hit and they fall down, and we'll often think, oh, that's seriously hurt. Yeah, it is. It's serious brain damage at the same time. At the same time, a lot of those guys would be able to get back up shortly thereafter and keep fighting if they were allowed to. And this is one of the big differences between MMA and boxing. I missed a super chat. I'm going to back up so I don't skip out on that one. Don't worry, Spooky Noodles, I haven't forgotten your $5 question, which I will get to in just one moment. But one of the big problems with the sport of boxing is that you can get knocked down, you can get concussed, and you can get back up and you can keep fighting, and this can happen multiple times each round. And this can keep happening throughout the fight. And so somebody asked me a while back, why do we see more deaths in boxing than in mixed martial arts? Well, this is why. In MMA, somebody gets knocked down and rocked to the point where they're doing the fish dance a little bit. The referee's going to jump in there and stop the fight. They don't get a mulligan. So how hurt was Emmanuel Yarborough? We don't really know. But we do know that Keith Hackney won that fight pretty convincingly. All right, next question from Spooky Noodles. Have you ever had any psychedelic experiences, be it through meditation or drugs? What are your opinions on psychedelics and the research behind them? Okay. First of all, friends, don't do drugs. That being said, I'm going to tell you a hallucination story. When I was 21 years old, I was hospitalized, and I had a bunch of surgeries on my guts. I was dying. It was pretty horrible. But that's not what this part of the story is about. I was put on a morphine drip, and I was given so much morphine and so many painkillers that eventually the doctors decided, we can't give you any more. Let's do something else. One night, a nurse came in and had a needle or something she was going to stick in the IV. She said, this is to help you sleep. I said, okay, whatever. It didn't help me sleep. Instead, I began to hallucinate. I later learned that this sleeping agent sometimes causes hallucinations. Suddenly, the room turned black and white. There were lightning bolts flashing in the middle of the room, and then all these creatures, kind of resembling lizards with their skin covered with dozens of eyeballs started climbing all over the room, climbing on my arms, climbing up my bed, climbing all over, looking at me, blinking with dozens of eyeballs all over their bodies. And I'm looking at this, like thinking very consciously, this is not real. I know this is not real, and yet I'm seeing these things as if they are real. How interesting. This is creepy as hell, man. This went on for some time, kind of freaked me out. And the nurse came back a few hours later and said, I've got more of that sleepy juice for you. To which I replied, no, no, get that stuff away from me. Anyway, so that's my experience with psychedelic drugs. I haven't really read any research on psychedelic drugs, to be honest, so I don't really understand what the benefit of tripping out and seeing eyeball lizards climbing all over your arms would be. But apparently some people think there is some benefit to that sort of thing. There was another super chat, let me back up, from Josh in Jesus, who says, a 30-pound or more size difference is a mismatch. Yeah, usually it is. That is a big mismatch. I assume that's a commentary on the Emmanuel Yarborough versus Keith Hackney fight. Yeah, 30-pound size difference, yeah, that is a mismatch. I can definitely get behind that. A 400, 500-pound difference, that's a little more than a mismatch. So the fact that Keith Hackney was able to win that fight, even though Yarborough's whole game plan was try to sit on the guy, still quite impressive. Any advice to deal with unnecessary tension and anxiety? I suppose you would have to go to the root cause of your tension and your anxiety. Why are you tense? Why are you anxious? Do I drink coffee? No, I do not. I do not drink coffee. I don't drink tea. I don't even use caffeine. Don't drink alcohol. Don't use drugs. So that hospital drug story is a bit of a rare exception in my life. Definitely not the rule. But yeah, if you are tense and anxious, ask yourself why, and then go and address the root cause of that problem. Do I drink Coca-Cola? No. No, I don't. Joe Anderson, Jake Paul versus Master Wong in boxing. Who do you got? I would take the guy who's actually boxed before. Man, Jake Paul. Jake Paul is... How can I put this? I haven't seen him box enough to give you any good... how can I put this? Breakdowns of how good of a boxer he is, but he has got in the ring. He is a powerful puncher. He has trained. He is physical. He is strong. He's got all these attributes. And Master Wong, significantly smaller guy, much older guy, has never fought before, has never stepped in the ring before. I would say that would be a gross mismatch. We were just talking about 30 pounds being a gross mismatch. How much is Jake Paul? What is he, like 200 pounds, 190? I don't know how much he is, but he's a pretty big guy. Yarborough sent in a super chat and says, actually, I was going to fart on him too once I sat. Okay. Thank you for the super chat. You just wanted me to read that in my voice, didn't you? You wanted to hear me say that in my voice. Okay. Fart jokes. Guys. What other questions do we have? When will I upload Soundtrack Dewey. You guys like the beats that I put in my videos? You like my original music? I don't know. I've uploaded a little bit of it. I put up a video a while back called something like Beats and Bag Work, where I'm doing some training with some of my music playing in the background. Some people seem to like that. Didn't get a lot of views. I think most people didn't know what it was. A bunch of people have asked me to, a bunch of you have been asking me to post some of my music on my channel. I did, but it's kind of hard to get anybody to watch that stuff when it's a channel in the sports genre of YouTube, as opposed to the music genre of YouTube. And then that confuses the YouTube robots, like, we don't know how to classify this. What do? We don't know who to recommend this crap to. So, oh man, we have a question with so many broken hearts. I gotta take a look at this. All right, Infinite Hustle says, I have tendinitis in both of my elbows. It flares up every time I wrestle. I've rested it for a month, but each time it comes back. Any advice, please? All right, tendinitis generally doesn't just appear for no reason. Again, we have to address the root cause of why that is. I ended up with some terrible tendinitis in my elbow a number of years ago because of punching form. And I didn't really understand why, or that it came from my punching form, until I had two experiences. One, I read Jack Dempsey's book, where he explained the difference between pure punching and impure punching. And the second thing was, I had a boxer from Russia I was training with pulled me aside and gave me a few very simple pointers that totally changed everything about the way I punch. And you're asking about wrestling, and I had no idea that the tendinitis in my elbow didn't come from grappling, because I felt it when I grappled, not when I punched. But when I would grapple, my elbow would just flare up so bad, I felt like I'm just gonna have to retire from coaching, because I can't even demonstrate these moves anymore. That's how bad it was. Okay, but when I changed my punching form, that changed everything about the tendinitis I experienced in my elbows. There was a third experience. I have a friend back in my hometown who is a baseball coach, like a high school baseball coach. And I had a conversation with him online about how a lot of these high school kids who play baseball end up needing elbow surgery, specifically because of the way they pitch. Now, for the longest time, baseball coaches they believed that it was the curve ball that was the big culprit, but in reality, it turns out to be the fastball. Why? When we throw a fastball, the arm comes up like this, and it's an easy way to generate a lot of power, in the same way that an impure punch like this is also an easy way to generate a lot of power. And it's a very natural way to move the arm. But it's going to take a toll on the elbow. So if you're moving the arm in this sort of way repeatedly, in your life, you might want to change that, pull those elbows in, and start moving the arm more in this way, right? Anyway, so in baseball, there's been this transition toward throwing more curveballs and less fastballs to preserve the health of the elbow. So when we apply those same body mechanics to other aspects of life, including grappling, yeah, you can preserve the health of your joints quite a bit. I hope that helps. Also, check into your diet. Eat foods that are anti-inflammatory instead of inflammatory. Google that, anti-inflammatory foods. That can help a lot. All right, we have a super chat from Sen Sam, who says, I just read the UFC Performance Institute's paper titled A Cross-Sectional Performance Analysis of the UFC Athlete. Question will continue below. Okay, I got like 500 other questions below, so I'm not sure where that is, my friend. But I'm very interested in hearing what the question was. Looking through that to see if I can find anything. Found 2 other posts from Sensam, who says, the results of the paper surprise me. The fighters aren't that strong compared to the average gym lifter, but they're crazy conditioned. And my screen is auto-scrolling, so where's the question? Stop auto-scrolling, screen, go back. Go back. Sensam, where are you? There we go. He goes on to say their VO2 max numbers resembled elite endurance athletes. Why don't you comment more on the aerobic conditioning aspect of MMA training? Why don't I comment more on the aerobic conditioning aspect of MMA training? Okay, you're probably thinking of a few of the videos I've made where I talk about the cardio myth, the idea that if you do endurance sports like distance running specifically, or rope skipping, that essentially the idea that the athletic crossover of these specific activities to combat sports is grossly overestimated, largely due to boxing traditions that are about 100 years old without a lot of research to back them up. Now, the VO2 max numbers of fighters, yeah, you are absolutely right, resemble elite endurance athletes. Why? Because fight training itself is an elite endurance performance endeavor. Think about that. What does a combat sports athlete have to do, an MMA fighter specifically? On any given day, an average professional fighter is training 2 or 3 times a day. They're doing strength and conditioning. They are doing technique and sparring. They are hitting bags, they're hitting pads, they're shadow boxing, they are wrestling, they're doing jiu-jitsu. They're doing a bunch of stuff, and all of that requires tremendous amounts of energy, and it is actually kind of insane to think on top of all of this, I am also going to do a 10-mile run or skip rope for an hour or something like that. To me, that's kind of crazy. There are only so many hours in the day to train, first of all, and there are only so many productive hours of training you're actually going to have. So, if you're asking me why I don't specifically recommend running for fighters, it's specifically because fighters are generally getting way, how can I put this? They're getting enough of that stuff as it is with their fight training. It's redundant at that point. It's just wearing down the joints at that point. Now, I know a lot of fighters do it, and there's a lot to say about the mental toughness of doing a little bit more. A lot of people ask me, how do I fight like Mike Tyson? And there is no lack of videos on YouTube titled something like, How to Fight Like Mike Tyson. And you might notice I've never made one of these videos, but if I did, it would go something like this. What time in the morning did Mike Tyson wake up to go and run? Do you guys know? Something like 4 in the morning. Mike Tyson would wake up super early in the morning and he would go and run. And when asked why, he would say, yeah, 4 a.m. Why? Why did Mike Tyson wake up at 4 a.m. to go run? Do you guys know? Why did he do it? Because he thought his opponents were still in bed, and he wanted that advantage. He wanted that psychological advantage, thinking to himself, I am doing something more difficult than they are. I am pushing myself harder than they are. I'm making a sacrifice that they are not willing to do. This is an expression of mental toughness that they are not expressing. He's proving something to himself, okay? Now, how do you fight like Mike Tyson? How many of you wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go run? Or whatever your training is, how many of you wake up at 4 a.m. to go do that? Some of you. I know some of you do. But I'm going to venture to say most of you don't. Most of you probably do your training when it's a lot more convenient. Most of you probably do your training when you're feeling pretty good about it. When you're not so tired, when you're not so fatigued, when it's convenient. Okay? So, if you want to fight like Mike Tyson, don't think fight like him. Change the mindset a little bit. Yeah, you got to be mentally tough. Mentally tough in order to do something that other people are not willing to do. That doesn't necessarily mean wake up at 4 a.m. That might not actually be productive for you. But definitely be willing to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Sean wants to know, Ramsey, is it weird to not care if you lose? I've been in many wrestling matches and I've lost almost all of them, but I still love the sport and martial arts. But should I care more about losing? Oh man, that depends. Man, I remember a time when I didn't care about losing either. In fact, getting competitive about anything, I simply wasn't. I wasn't a competitive person. And I did not start professional fighting, to be competitive. I didn't become a fighter to be competitive. I didn't become a fighter to prove anything. I became a fighter to make an extra paycheck, to make ends meet. And so when I won, okay, cool. I got a bigger paycheck. And when I lost, whatever. There's always another fight, right? And after retiring, my mindset changed a lot because I became a coach, and as a coach, my priorities shifted. When you're a coach, you have to start caring a whole lot about winning because that's your job. The job of a coach is to facilitate the process of your fighters winning fights. How old am I? I'm 42 years old. I'll be 43 in a couple months here. But yeah, my priorities definitely changed when I became a coach. Now, if I could go back in time and give myself a little coaching pep talk, I think I would definitely talk to younger me about the importance of focusing on winning, not so much as an issue of pride, but because as far as combat sports goes, when you're losing, you're generally taking damage. And that's not good for anybody. If you're winning, the winner generally takes less damage than the loser. Is there a safe way to condition your jawbone? Okay. You know, there was a company that contacted me wanting me to do some endorsement for their product on my channel. It's like this thing you stick in your mouth and you kind of mimic chewing motions like, it's like a jaw exercising doodad. And the claim was that it would increase the bone mass of the jaw. And the primary marketing scheme was that it would actually make your jaw bigger and give you like a bigger, like a Batman chin, a chiseled chin with bigger features. And I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen any research to that effect. I've heard anecdotes and anecdotes only. But I imagine you're asking, is there some way to make your jaw stronger to the point where if you get hit on the side of the jaw, it would knock you out less? No. What else do we have? Why did old school boxers run with a stick in their hands? Man, that's a great question. I'm glad you know that, because a lot of people don't know that. If you watch like old training videos of Jack Dempsey and guys in his era, when they ran, when they did their road work, well, it generally wasn't on a road. They would run up and down hills, and they would carry a stick in their hands, and they would like almost like paddle it, like they're going in a kayak while they were running. And I don't know why they did that, just that they did. It's interesting. I've tried it. I've tried running with a stick in my hands like that just to see what it feels like, and it definitely feels different. It's a different type of exercise. So give it a try, see what you think. Maybe it involves the arms a little bit more. Maybe it's because since they were going off-road, you could sometimes use that stick as a walking stick if you got to a part of the path where it wasn't easy to run on and you had to hike a little bit. Or you ever hiked in some rough terrain? A walking stick comes in really handy. So it's entirely possible that they would run with the stick in their hands until they got to a point where they had to walk and hike and use that as a walking stick. I don't know. Try it out. Let me know what you think. Maybe you can make a video about running with a stick in your hands and report your scientific findings. You should do a collab with the Bioneer. That name sounds familiar, but I don't know who that is. How tall am I? I am 185 centimeters tall, or 6'1" in US customary units. Man, I'm looking through this list. So many questions flying by. Dread Insight says, Coach, can you still train grappling and be thrown at an old age? Let's say like 60 to 70 years old. Not all 60 and 70-year-olds are created equal. There are some tough as nails 60 and 70-year-old people. I watched a wrestling match today. It was on the internet. Somebody posted it on Instagram with these old dudes from Russia. These guys who were like 60 and 70 years old, and they were wrestling. They were going at it. It was a fun match to watch. Both of these guys were in great shape. A lot of people that age are not in great shape, like at all. So it really depends on what kind of shape you're in. I'd strongly recommend watch my podcast with Matt Grant about the topic of training at more advanced ages. Matt is in his mid-50s. No, he started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in his mid-50s. He's currently an IBJJF world champion, brown belt level. He's won world championships at purple belt and blue belt as well. Again, started in his mid-50s. We have a super chat from TJ who says, Hey, Coach, love your videos as always. My question for you, sir. Do you see Sanda ever becoming as popular as Muay Thai? No, to be honest, I don't, and it's because of the marketing, not because of the sport. Sanda is a great sport. I really enjoy it. But even here in China, probably even especially here in China, Sanda is kind of dying, with the exception of people who study Sanda at the sports universities. Like 12 years ago, I competed in some Sanda matches. And that was fun. That was interesting. Now it's very difficult to even find a Sanda match to compete in outside of a sports university. Like professional Sanda is almost not even a thing in China anymore. Why? Because it's been displaced with K1 style kickboxing. So almost every kickboxing sport, Almost every professional league, as far as ring sports, kickboxing, if you will, stand-up fighting, uses K1 rules in China. Like almost all of them. I'm not sure why exactly the marketing behind K1 rules worked so well in China and the marketing behind the Chinese national combat sport, Sanda, just didn't and fizzled out. But it did. Now, outside of China, I am not sure exactly how popular Sanda is. I imagine probably less so than in the People's Republic of China itself. So will it ever become as popular as Muay Thai? Probably not. I think it's always going to be a niche sport. Can a fighter compete in both MMA and boxing at the same time? Yes, and a lot of them do. A lot of them do. I know a lot of fighters who are both professional boxers and professional MMA fighters and also professional kickboxers. You can do multiple sports. I have. I've competed in 5 different professional combat sports, in mixed martial arts, in Muay Thai, in American kickboxing, in Sanda, in K1 rules kickboxing. That's 5. Boxing I only did as an amateur, but I have trained a number of professional boxers and several professional boxers who have also competed in mixed martial arts and various kickboxing ring sports. If you look at Wikipedia, there's a whole Wikipedia entry on high-level, like UFC-level fighters who've also competed as professional boxers and had successful professional boxing careers. What is the best age to start boxing? Man, that's a good question. I was having a conversation about training kids the other day. A lot of people want to know. They feel left out because they didn't get to train in a martial art or a combat sport as a kid, okay? And they feel like, well, it's not worth training now because I didn't train then. Training children is a very... It's a different kind of task. Why? Because the main focus is not teaching the children how to fight, it's teaching the children how to move. Whether it is a boxing class, a taekwondo class, a judo class, an MMA class, whatever. You're teaching those kids how to move. And that's the most important thing the kids get out of a martial arts class, is learning how to move, building a movement vocabulary. And that is the advantage that people who train as children have over adults who begin training as adults. It is not that they learn how to fight as a small child, it's that they build a movement vocabulary and they develop their kinesthetic bodily intelligence as children, so that then when they learn how to fight later on, it is easier to do so. When I teach adult classes, people who've never trained before, who don't know anything about fighting, and they come to my classes for the first time, I spend a lot of time in the warm-ups teaching them specifically how to move, how to step, how to move their head, how to do tumbling, how to go upside down, how to move right, how to move left, how to move up, how to move down, etc., etc., etc. And why is that important? Because if you can't move, you can't fight. Sounds like something Terry Silver would say from The Karate Kid. If a man can't move, he can't fight. He didn't say that, but it sounds like part of the Quicksilver method. Karate Kid 3 fans, you should understand. Joe Anderson wants to know, does parkour have any use or effect in MMA? Well, that's directly related to what we were just talking about. What is parkour? It's movement. I've interviewed a few different parkour practitioners and parkour instructors about what parkour is and what it isn't, and most of them define it as moving in the most efficient way between point A and point B. And sometimes that's as simple as walking, and sometimes it's as complex as doing some flips or rolls or some fancy looking movement, depending on the obstacles in between point A and point B. But what is parkour? It's essentially developing a high level of kinesthetic bodily intelligence so that you can move your body efficiently and quickly without injury. So how does that cross over into fighting? There's definitely a lot of athletic crossover between one highly athletic discipline and another highly athletic discipline. As a coach, I always find it much easier to train established athletes as opposed to people with very little in the way of athletic aptitude. All right, super chat from Lynx Factor 12. Do you have a recommended martial art sport for preteens? Balancing fun and future usefulness has become hard, plus the pandemic shutting gyms down. Do I have a recommend? Well, that depends on what you want to get out of martial arts. For fun and future usefulness, and that's highly subjective based on what you find fun. What do I find fun? I find cage fighting fun. I find jiu-jitsu fun. I find wrestling fun. I find boxing fun. I find kickboxing fun. Not everybody finds these things fun. I find them useful. In my personal life, not everybody finds them useful in their own life. Now, you're in a situation where a lot of the gyms in your area have shut down, so you might just have to take what you can get. Our friend Sensei Ando, he did a podcast recently, which I listened to, and I'd recommend go take a listen to his last podcast. It was a good one. And he talked about just that. A lot of the gyms in his area, I believe even his own gym, ended up getting shut down during the pandemic. And so he went and he trained with a group of friends in the park who were martial arts practitioners, a different style. It was a different experience. But he was grateful for the fact that he was able to get out there and train, which was pretty awesome. So if you are in a situation where your options are limited, do what you can. Go check out all of your options, even if it's just training with some friends in the park. If you're getting out there and training, that's going to be useful for the future, my friend. Here's an interesting question. How do you not get scared of punching in sparring? I do boxing, and I can't punch sometimes as I get scared to get punched at the same time. I like boxing, but I can't get past that problem. Okay. What are we scared of? You're probably scared of injury. You're probably scared of getting hit hard. You're probably scared of getting hurt. And what is this? This is PTSD from hard sparring. So as I always say, quit the hard sparring. Stop the hard sparring. Throw that out the window. Throw that in the trash where it belongs. Start doing some light contact sparring with very, very little power. And this doesn't set well with a lot of people's egos. But, man, newsflash, if you don't know already, you don't have to do hard sparring all the time. Because there's this thing that goes on in boxing gyms, and I've made videos about this before, but let's reiterate it right now. The traditional model of a boxing gym, and a lot of combat sports gyms out there, especially when I was starting, is this. You go into the gym, you spar hard, and you weed out the people who can't take the hard sparring. They go home, they lick their wounds, they suffer the PTSD, they don't want any more of it. And the psychopaths rise to the top. The crazies that are able to take it and that thrive on that and that like that stuff, and more so the ones who aren't taking all the damage, or the brunt of the damage are the ones who keep going. And a lot of coaches encourage this because it is easier to do it that way as opposed to take a few steps back and help people who are struggling to get back on the right path. It's much easier, like I said before, to train people who are already athletes than people who are not to become athletes. But are we in this industry because it's easy? I'm not. Super chat from Joe Anderson, who says, what martial arts actor do you think would do well in MMA? Oh, okay. It's an interesting question. You know, George St. Pierre was a martial arts actor. He was in Captain America, you know that? He did pretty well in MMA, but you're probably wondering, you know, the guys who weren't already professional fighters. Man, I don't know. That's a good question. Martial arts actor who would do well in MMA. There are a lot of pro wrestlers who went on to become actors, but you're probably not thinking of them. You're probably thinking about the kung fu punch kick, spin around and fly through the air sort of fight choreography guys. Man, what kung fu actors are there? What martial arts actors are out there today? Like in my mind, I'm just thinking about like the old school ones from the 90s, like Van Damme and Steven Seagal, and these guys are old at this point. Scott Adkins. I don't even know who Scott Adkins is, to be honest. That's apparently after my generation. Michael Jai White. I know who Michael Jai White is because of the internet. I think I saw about 5 minutes of one of his movies on TV once. I don't know what movie it was, but he was like doing a karate form. And then he gets in a fight and there's like flashbacks of him doing the karate form and he's using movements from the karate form in the real fight. And yeah, then somebody changed the channel. Undisputed. I haven't seen Undisputed. I'm not familiar with that movie. Keanu Reeves. Man, these guys are all like, how old is Keanu Reeves? He's like 50, 60. I don't know. He's not a young man anymore. Michael Jai White is not a young man anymore. MMA, I'm tempted to say it's a young man's game. Why? Because old men, we know better, don't we? Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan's like 90 years old, man. Same with Jet Li. At this point in their lives, I don't think they would do very well in the UFC. Did Donnie Yen train in BJJ? Donnie Yen trains in everything. He's a muscle mimic, man. I know one of the guys who works for Donnie Yen in his stunt team. Donnie sends his team out all over the world to study various styles of martial arts. They sends them to different gyms to study different training methods, to bring these methods back and integrate them into his fight choreography, and he does a fantastic job with that. Marco wants to know thoughts on students getting so good that they start catching the coach in submissions. Yeah, that's kind of the point, is to train your students to be better than the coach. Because it's not going to be the coach in that cage fighting for them. They're the ones who are going to be all by themselves, locked in a cage with another human being trying to hurt them. And so they better be better than the coach at fighting. That's the whole point, guys. Is it possible to work and have a job and train to be a professional fighter? Yuri wants to know that. Yeah, most professional fighters also work full-time. It's not only possible, it's absolutely necessary for most people. Unless you have some sort of financial support, most professional fighters work full-time. Surprise. People don't like to hear that, but it's true. It's absolutely true. When I was fighting pro, I was working 4 different jobs at the same time, in addition to training and also coaching. Is there any occasion where you should bring a gun into the octagon? No. Mixed martial arts is unarmed combat. That's the first rule. You will end up in prison if you try that. Don't do it, my friends. How do you get stronger but not bigger? Well, you do strength training, but you don't consume a caloric excess. That's simple. The only reason you would grow is if you're eating more food than you did before. So do strength training and keep your diet in check if you don't want to grow and gain size. What do I think about weight cuts? Is it dangerous? Yes, absolutely. Weight cuts have killed people. Man, I did a weight cut that almost killed me. 30 pounds in less than 24 hours. That's stupid. Talk about this all the time. Talked about it a lot. Weight cuts need to end. They do. I have never, there's a mosquito buzzing around my head. I've never once heard a good justification for not having day of weigh-ins. Think about this for a minute. When I started fighting pro, they did day of weigh-ins in the fight promotion I was competing in. Day of weigh-ins, meaning about an hour before you stepped in the cage, you stepped on the scale. And if you made weight, great, you go on to fight. If you don't make weight, you've got 30 minutes to cut the weight, and if you can't, you don't fight. And the only real argument that people have presented against this format is, well, then you'll have fights fall through. Okay, let them fall through. Weight cutting's stupid. Let's get rid of the stupid guys. Weight cutting is dangerous. Fighting is already dangerous. Fighting dehydrated is stupid dangerous. Let's get rid of the stupid. Let's get rid of the unnecessary danger. Super chat from TJ says, hey, coach, follow up to my Sunday question. Are there other striking arts that are able to do so and beautifully integrate striking and takedowns? I don't know if you could call it an art, but here's a drill I do a lot with MMA fighters. I call it wrestle punching, where you put on the boxing gloves and you box, except one of the guys is also working for takedowns. And the other guy is working his takedown defense, but they're both boxing. And I think this is a beautiful art. It's a fantastic drill, and it teaches you a whole lot about takedown defense and also setting up your takedowns in the context of striking in a way that is sustainable to the point where you can do a bunch of rounds without getting seriously hurt, as long as you're using some control. So, but as far as like classical styles, martial arts with a name that you might recognize, that are as complete and as beautiful as Sanda in their integration of striking and grappling, there are a lot that claim to be that. There are a lot of martial arts that claim to be complete martial arts. In our forms, in our syllabus, we have striking and grappling, and then you watch them spar and it's just bad kickboxing and bad grappling. If you look at good Muay Thai fighters, I mean, technically, wrestling techniques and judo techniques are banned from Muay Thai, but there are a lot of sweeps that are totally legal in judo and also legal in wrestling that are used in Muay Thai. Some single leg finishes that are also used in Muay Thai. Anyway, as far as a live combat sport that integrates striking and grappling well and beautifully, Muay Thai and the other Southeast Asian ring sports that resemble Muay Thai. Ooh, here's a compelling question. Joe Anderson sends in another super chat. Steven Seagal versus Master Wong. Who you got? Okay, man, this is a fight I would pay to see this. Ooh, this would be fun. It will probably be a terrible fight, but I would pay to watch it. Ooh, I'm evil for thinking about how this fight would go down. I would pick Steven Seagal specifically because he's a lot bigger, and there would be a lot of talk surrounding this fight. I think the build up to this fight would be so much more interesting than the actual fight. I think the actual fight would be two old guys flailing around a little bit, grabbing each other. It would probably turn into a sloppy wrestling match. Probably turn into some crazy clothesline striking nonsense. But the build up around this would be great. And I think Steven Seagal would win not only the fight, but he would win the trash talk. Zethan wants to know about my church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He wants to know more about that. Okay, if you're interested in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I know a couple of guys who are willing to come to your door. There are missionaries who will come and talk to you and tell you all about it. Go to... Hold on just a second. You can find the church website at thechurchofjesuschrist.org. So go check that out if you're interested in learning more about the church. Okay, that's enough evangelism for one Q&A with the coach. On with the questions. Alma wants to know. Super chat. Thank you, Alma. Thank you for the live. Coach, you've made my gym hour unboring. When are those wisdom posters coming out? Oh, you like the wisdom posters? Okay, I should definitely make some more of those. You've inspired me, Alma. I'm going to make some more of those. Some more of those inspiring posters with my words of wisdom for you. Glad somebody appreciated that. Paul points out that I have a second channel, Ramsey Reads the Bible. Yeah, if you're interested in reading the Bible, definitely go check that one out. Will the missionaries visit you in the octagon? Probably not. Joe Anderson sends in another great super chat. Vladimir Putin versus Master Wong versus Captain Krav Maga. Man, you should be the matchmaker for the UFC, Joe Anderson, because that would be epic. A three-way tag team battle between Vladimir Putin, Master Wong. Now, is this tag team or is it free-for-all? Because those are two different things. I said free-for-all, tag team. It's one or the other. Man, if it's Vladimir Putin versus Master Wong, I would go with Putin. Even though he's an older gentleman, I've trained with a lot of Russians. Like, a lot of Russian sambo fighters, judo experts, etc. And these dudes are just tough. They're just built different. Like the average Westerner that I've met. There. Okay, it looks like we're back. So I would definitely pick Putin over a guy like Master Wong, who is a YouTube personality. But you brought Captain Krav Maga into the equation. And man, Captain Krav Maga does not play by the rules. Putin probably doesn't either. Come to think of it, I don't think Master Wong does either. Huh. So it'd probably turn into a groin-grabbing, striking contest between Wong and Captain Krav Maga, and I'm imagining the Russian version of the Secret Service would probably step in and take care of business for Putin, although he probably wouldn't even need them. All right, what else do we have, friends? You guys like Captain Krav Maga? I've been trying to get him to appear in another video lately. He's a busy man, though. How do you do a dragon tail sweep that is strong enough to take an opponent down? Dude, I've got a whole video about that. Check out Captain Krav Maga and the deadly dragon tail sweep. That's on my YouTube channel. Fairly recent one. Go check that one out. Radical trivia. Oh, dude, this guy sent me a email the other day about doing a podcast, which I'm very interested in doing. Interesting fellow, interesting channel. Go check it out. Not a lot of viewers yet, but he definitely should have more. Radical trivia says, hey, coach, what music are you listening to right now? Well, it's pretty quiet here. I'm not listening to any music at the moment, but also can't wait to have you on the show. P.S. Isn't it super late there right now? Yes, it is super late. It's 1:30 in the morning. I should be going to bed pretty soon here. But I wanted to have a chance to talk to some of you folks that I did not get a chance to talk to before, but music that I like listening to. I love listening to blues. Oh man, blues, old school blues. It's probably my favorite genre of music of all time. Thank you for the question. And yes, looking forward to that podcast. Super chat from Mike, who says, me and Icy Mike versus the Paul brothers tag team rules. Did it have to be Icy Mike? Why can't I stop laughing at that? Okay. Okay, does Icy Mike get to use his tactical flashlight? I'm trying to laugh quietly so I don't wake up my kids in the other room here. Can I pick a different tag team partner? I mean, the Paul brothers are pretty big. Not knocking Icy Mike, but we were just discussing how a 30-pound weight difference is an unfair fight, and there's two of them, not just one. They're pretty big boys. Okay, Linwood Jackson. Oh man, very generous super chat. Sends in this question. Your laugh is great. I need to go back to work. Be well, my friend. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I'm still laughing about that Icy Mike question, man. Icy Mike versus the Paul brothers in a tag team. Who do you guys think would win? Tag team matchup between the Paul brothers and myself, Icy Mike. What are the rules? Is this boxing? Is it pro wrestling? Is it MMA? What's the deal here? That would be really interesting to see the Paul brothers in an MMA contest. I don't know anything about Jake Paul outside of his boxing experience. I do know that his brother Logan has wrestling experience. And so a guy who's, a decent wrestler and a decent boxer and a highly athletic, strong human being, that's nothing to shake a stick at in a cage fight. So Am I currently in Shanghai, China? If so, can I please say my iconic catchphrase? Yes, I am in Shanghai, China. And you want to hear my iconic catchphrase? Which one? Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train, or hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Do I have another iconic catchphrase? Probably. You know, there are a lot of YouTubers out there who have iconic catchphrases that I don't think they realize they're saying a lot. For example, if you watch Chael Sonnen, he says the word meaningful a meaningful number of times in almost every video. Our Lynx Factor 12 sends in another super chat. Thought experiment. Professional wrestling, MMA, 3-count pins, ring outs, submissions, DQs from interference, and weapons. What would be the best strategy? Wait, hold on. Is this a conceptual fight between me and Icy Mike versus the Paul brothers? Or is this just an idea of, with these specific rules, what would be the best strategy to win? Okay, I'll go with the latter. So we have a professional wrestling / MMA style event where you can win by pin with a 3-count, you can win by submission, you can win by ring out, toss the guy out of the ring, and you can be disqualified by interference from outside of the ring or using a weapon. What would be the best strategy? Best strategy would probably be pin your opponent. And here's why. If you've ever competed in catch wrestling, and if you haven't, give it a try. Most grapplers these days come from a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tradition, and that's fine, that's awesome. But I would strongly recommend that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners once in a while train with catch wrestling rules. And it's very simple. You win by pin or you win by submission. And you'll learn pretty quickly that a lot of those matches where pin is a way to win will end by pin. Because you can often pin the guy long before you submit him. That happens a lot in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How many times do we get somebody in side control before you submit them? How many times do you get somebody in full mount before you submit them? A lot, right? What is that? Those are pins. So, yeah. That would be my number one strategy. Focus on your wrestling. Become the best wrestler you possibly can be. And if you're going up against a superior wrestler, well then, play your strengths against his weaknesses. Always play your strengths against the other guy's weaknesses. So many Master Wong versus random people questions. Master Wong versus a 10-foot-tall giant muscle man with black belts in every fighting style. Who would win? I wonder. Okay, I'm sorry, I laughed at your question. Some person says, I know it's never too late to start training, but in terms of being successful professionally, is it feasible to start at age 20 and have a realistic chance of making it professionally? I laughed at that question because I read it incorrectly, and I thought you said, I know it's too late to start training at age 20, and I laughed at that because that's just a silly notion. But let's address the question. In terms of being successful professionally, is it feasible to start training at age 20 and have a realistic chance of making it professionally? Heck yes, age 20 is the perfect time to start training. That's not too old. That's the perfect time to start training. All right, we got a super chat from a couple of them. Dyslexic YT, who says, Ramsey, I love you, even though I don't fight or train. I heavily appreciate your life talks in the Q&A series. Thanks for being genuine. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. And RC sends in a super chat. Captain Krav Maga versus the knife-wielding maniac. Oh, man. That is one of those one of those fantastic fictional fight scenes that we never got around to making. Now, Jordan Chow and Nils, who may or may not resemble Captain Krav Maga, have appeared in videos together, and Nils has been stabbed by Jordan in my videos. So in that regard, the knife-wielding maniac has won, but the actual character of Captain Krav Maga versus the knife-wielding maniac, as portrayed by Jordan Chow, ooh. You know what, actually, they were in a video together. They were. Oh, if you haven't seen how that played out, go check it out. It's titled something like, oh, what is it? Like the worst self-defense ever pitted against each other in a contest of who can do it better. Who did it better, worse? I don't remember. But Captain Krav Maga's very first appearance, you see Captain Krav Maga versus the knife-wielding maniac. We actually did do that on film. Joe Anderson, the great matchmaker. Master Wong versus a cardboard box on the streets. Okay, now if you said the cardboard box was in a cage fight under unified rules, I would have to go with the cardboard box. But since you brought the streets into this, Master Wong, as he always tells us, as he always reminds us, does these things for the streets. He trains for the streets. And so on the streets, that cardboard box would be in severe danger of a groin grab, possibly an eye poke, and some other low blows, courtesy of Master Wong. All right. Alma sends in another super chat. Captain Krav Maga versus the Collector from Mortal Kombat. My money is on the Captain. Strategy for this to happen. Oh man, the Collector, is that... He's from one of the more recent Mortal Kombat games. I haven't played the most recent Mortal Kombat games. I've seen gameplay from them. He's one of those dudes with 4 arms, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not really familiar with his fighting style, but if I'm not mistaken, the Collector has a groin, correct? In fact, if I'm not mistaken, every character in Mortal Kombat has a groin. And, as we all know, Captain Krav Maga's strategy is largely based on attacking the groin. And, even though the characters from the Mortal Kombat series are... You know, they're ridiculously superpowered. They can shoot fireballs out of their hands. They can morph into dragons. They can do some crazy stuff. Since the very first game, groin strikes have been part of the mythos of Mortal Kombat. And all of the characters in Mortal Kombat are susceptible to the groin strike. So, I would say, yeah, Captain Krav Maga has a serious advantage there. Thank you for your question. All right, what else do we have? What do I think about Ranton? Okay. He's that YouTuber who used to live at the Shaolin Temple, right? I think I watched like 1 or 2 of his videos. Actually, I watched one of his videos about Mortal Kombat. He was doing like a Let's Play Mortal Kombat video, and he mentioned that when he lived at the Shaolin Temple, he played Mortal Kombat with the Shaolin monks. I thought that was kind of interesting. The Shaolin Temple has changed. Back in the day, they didn't even have electricity, and now they're playing Mortal Kombat with Ranton. So, me. Don't know much about the guy. All right, what other questions do we have? All right, John wants to know, he's 40 years old, he has bad knees. Can he still learn effective grappling? Yes, you can. I would recommend, in addition to learning grappling, strengthen your legs. If you have bad knees, strengthen your legs. I'm one of those guys who had bad knees at a very young age. And my knees still bother me. I've had pretty much every knee injury that didn't involve my ligaments tearing completely. And the reason I'm able to grapple today at age 42 is specifically because I focus on strength and conditioning of my legs, squats, deadlifts, and accessory work to strengthen the muscles of the legs. Why? Because that will support your knees. And you may be shocked and surprised in a very pleasant way that your knees are not actually as bad as you think they are. Always take care of your joints, guys. Some kind words from MMA Addict. Man, I'm glad the channel helps, my friend. Thoughts on Quentin Tarantino's view on Bruce Lee? Hold on, I want to read this whole question. Where did it go? So a lot of people are talking about this. Quentin Tarantino was on the Joe Rogan podcast recently, and Joe asked him some questions about that movie. What was it called? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I didn't see the movie. I did see the clip in question where there's a fight between an actor playing Bruce Lee, a fictionalized version of Bruce Lee, having a fight with a character played by Brad Pitt, and it doesn't work out very well for Bruce Lee. So my thoughts on Bruce Lee being unable to fight even though others like Joe Louis gave him major props. I think there are a lot of people who get absolutely sick of hearing all the lavish praise heaped upon Bruce Lee, something that Bruce Lee wasn't even about. And it's easy to lash out at these people, at the constituents of the Church of Jeet Kune Do, bowing down at the altar of Bruce Lee, like, oh, he is our God, our deity, and to poke fun at these people, but it often gets misinterpreted as taking a dig at the man, the myth, the legend himself. So, yeah, oh, we got a super chat from Radical Trivia again. He says, Mortal Kombat 11 has skins from the 1995 movie. It'll wash that new movie right out of your brain. Gotta go. Thanks again, Coach Jared from the future. Man, you know, I was watching... This next week, I'm going to Beijing, take my kids to Beijing. We're going to see the Forbidden City. They've never been there. I have, for the first time. And my wife wanted to give them some context of what the Forbidden City is, the history behind it, and so on. So we watched part of the movie The Last Emperor, if you haven't seen that. It's an English language film, takes place in China between the reign of the last emperor of China and the takeover of and the beginning of the People's Republic of China, that transition from... Anyway, so I'm watching The Last Emperor and I realize there are a ton of actors in this movie from other movies, including that dude who plays Shang Tsung in the 1990s Mortal Kombat movie. He's like one of the advisors to the Emperor in The Last Emperor, and that dude from Big Trouble in Little China with the crazy eye. That guy is also one of the advisors to the Emperor in this movie, and there were like 5 or 6 other actors that I recognized from all these martial arts films that are in this this movie that I didn't even realize were in there before. So Shang Tsung is in The Last Emperor, and the whole time I'm watching it, I've seen this movie like 5 or 6 times before, but this time I was like, it's Shang Tsung. He's standing right behind the Emperor. He's gonna steal his soul. Anyway, we've been talking about Mortal Kombat quite a bit. And coincidentally, Big Trouble in Little China inspired the character of Shang Tsung. Yeah, so many connections right there. We should definitely talk about this on your podcast, my friend. I'll give you an email about that later. All right. Do I think working out is bad for your health considering injuries happen? No, working out is actually good for you if you are doing it right. Somebody asked me a question about deadlifts, like way back up there, that I skipped over, but I wanted to get to. He said, I know you advocate deadlifts a lot, but I've heard a lot of people say they're bad for your back or people experience injuries. if you're experiencing injuries from deadlifts. 1, you're lifting too heavy, and 2, you're doing it wrong. Fix your form, lighten the load. If you do deadlifts right, they are wonderful for your back. It's a fantastic exercise to strengthen your back when you do it correctly. If you're getting injured, you're doing it wrong, you're lifting too heavy. Sweet, we got a Bruce Lee super chat. Y'all hype me up too much. We love you, Bruce. We love you, man. Could we get a potential Jax Blade collab? Oh man, Jax Blade. Awesome dude. Very interesting channel. Maybe. Maybe. We'll see what the man has to say. That could be fun. If you guys have ideas for podcast collaborations you would like to see on this channel, let me know. Have I ever been hit in the liver? Yeah, man. My first pro kickboxing match. It was the second round. I got kind of pinned up against the ropes, and the guy started working the body through a shovel hook right to my liver, and the only reason I did not fall down in that fight is because he was pushing me up against the ropes and physically holding me up as he was pummeling me. And I just wanted to fall down and die, but I could not physically fall down because he was pressing me up against the ropes. And so I actually made it to the next bell and had like nothing left in me for the third round, but I eked it out to a decision loss as opposed to a loss by KO. So there was that. Somebody asked a question about trans athletes in MMA, and I made a whole video about this a few years ago where I expressed my thoughts on that, but I'm going to ask you a question. How many trans athletes are there in mixed martial arts? Can you name any? Now, some of you might be thinking, what about Fallon Fox? When was the last time Fallon Fox competed? Years ago. Can you name any others? I can think of one other, a trans athlete from Mexico who had a couple of fights and has not fought in years. Can you think of any current trans MMA fighters right now, competing right now, at any level? There are probably some out there. But if there are, they are very few and far between. So it's very interesting that this becomes such a heated point of discussion when the reality is it's something that almost never happens. But if we were to take the, how often discussions about this topic happen on YouTube, you would think it was happening. Every other UFC event is a trans woman fighting a non-trans woman, or whatever the politically correct language is these days. And that's simply not happening. So, there's that. Mandrake says, people getting crazy about trans athletes when people like Cyborg exist. That's a fair point. There are some absolute killer female athletes. Chris Cyborg, man, Gabby Garcia. Have you seen Gabby Garcia? Gabby Garcia is a natural female athlete who would probably kill most men in hand-to-hand combat. Okay. Paul Polito is questioning Gabby Garcia's natural status. Is Gabby Garcia natty or not? That's not the question. Is she a female or not? That was my point. Shaw says, I liked your post about veganism on YouTube. Well, it's a post that mentioned the word vegan a couple of times, but really what it was about, it was a post about food scarcity on Earth. And I think that point was kind of overlooked because people read the first sentence, which mentioned the word vegan, and people flip out like, oh, he said vegan. Let's talk about vegans forever. When the fact of the matter is, there are billions of people on this planet who are either starving, or they are nutritionally deprived, or they are in a caloric deficit because of a lack of food. So, man, it's a big issue, man. It is a big issue. Where our food comes from, the amount of arable land on the planet, what we're doing with that land, that's a much, much bigger issue than whether or not you are eating a plant-based diet or a omnivorous diet, man. Good custody of the earth takes precedence over that. All right, we got a couple of super chats. Leb Stark, go check out his channel. He's a kettlebell instructor, makes great content. Says, hey Ramsey, I want to say thank you that you mentioned our review and channel to your audience. I'd love to have you on our Kettle Nights podcast. Man, that'd be cool, man. Let's set that up. Send me an email, ramseydewey@gmail.com. Again, ramseydewey, all one word, @gmail.com. And we will hash out a time for that podcast. I'd love to do it, my friend. And again, go check out, I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing this name correctly, Lebestark. It looks like Leb or Lebe Stark. It's a kettlebell channel, awesome kettlebell coach, great content. He reviewed one of my videos, and it was very educational, very eye-opening in lots of ways, and also very entertaining content. And we had one more super chat from Joe Anderson. Cyborg got nothing on Captain Krav Maga. What would happen, though, if Captain Krav Maga attempted a groin strike on Chris Cyborg? I'll leave that to your imaginations. What else do we have? I'll take a couple more questions, then I'm headed to bed, guys. It's getting late over here in Shanghai. Captain Krav Maga will get sued for sexual harassment. Probably. Probably. Okay. We got a comic book question. Which Robin has the most likely chance of beating Batman in a fight in which each combatant is giving their all? Okay. You know, I think the Robin that has the most plot armor is Damian Wayne, by far. He's the smallest and youngest of the Robins, as far as I'm aware. I haven't kept up on DC Comics in a while, but he's definitely the one who has the most plot armor, and the one who seems to give Batman the most trouble. Somebody mentions Jason Todd as the Red Hood. Okay, yeah, there's that. But is he Robin at that point? And that's the same thing with, say, Nightwing. Is Nightwing still Robin? Or is he only Robin when he's a kid? If we're to say, okay, only the Robins when they're kids, when they're the sidekicks, I would say Damian Wayne would definitely be the one who would give Batman the most trouble. Could he beat Batman? Nah. But he could be a problem. Joe Anderson sends in another super chat. Cyborg would die from groin strikes from Master Wong. Die from laughter, most likely. Pavel says, the 1960s Robin would obviously win. Burt Ward for the win, guys. Joe Anderson, especially a groin strike on the streets. Okay, now you've changed the arena once again. Master Wong is now in his native habitat, the streets, where he, it's sort of like when Superman is on Earth exposed to the yellow sun as opposed to the red sun of Krypton, he gains his superpowers. When Master Wong is on the streets, it's the same thing. He absorbs the radiant energy coming off of the streets, and it gives him his invulnerability, clearly. All right, do we have any other martial arts questions before we call it a day? Dingus Dangus wants to know, if I was not a martial arts coach or fighter, what would I be instead? What's your biggest passion outside of martial arts? Man, I've done a bunch of different jobs. Somebody suggested I make a video about all the different jobs I've had. Right out of college, the first thing I tried to do, I applied for a job with the FBI as a special agent, passed all the tests, and then I decided I don't want to do that. And I changed my priorities a little bit. I wanted to teach high school Spanish for a while and ended up not doing that. And I had a dream of being a rock star once upon a time. That did not pan out. Now, if I just up and decided I'm not going to coach anymore, I'm just going to hang up the idea of martial arts training forever and do something else with my life, what would I do instead? Huh. Dang. I don't like the sound of that. That sounds depressing. That sounds terrible. Dude, I don't know. Probably try being a comedian or something. All right, Stephen Watson keeps asking this question over and over again, so let's take a look at it. What do I think about Anderson Silva being a right-handed southpaw and saying on video, I try to fight like Bruce Lee? Watch. You see, I am using his techniques. Anderson Silva does a lot of things. Man, when you're as good as Anderson Silva, you can do whatever you want in the ring. Do I ever play fighting video games like Tekken and try those combos to see if they're practical in real life? Interesting you should ask that. Somebody sent me a request the other day to try out the move set of a Tekken character from Tekken 7. I don't remember the dude's name, but it's like a Sambo-based fighter. And tomorrow, I'm actually going to film this over at the gym, trying out these movements in real life, because as fancy as the game makes them look, most of them are actually fairly practical and not that difficult to do in real life. So stay tuned for that video. 7 moves in real life. So yeah. There was actually a move, a rolling armbar, that I learned from watching one of the characters in Tekken 4. I was watching somebody else play like an arcade cabinet, Tekken 4, and one of the characters, I don't know which one, I don't know the names of any of the characters in the Tekken series, I don't know the story behind it, but the character sprawls down on the opponent and then gets a far side underhook and then rolls into an armbar. And I tried this out in real life and it totally worked, and I actually ended up winning a jiu-jitsu tournament with this move once. Afterwards, the referee was like, nice move, man. It looks fancy. It's not that hard to do. Sometimes when we put a roll or a spin or a turn in a movement, we think, oh, it's too complicated, when the reality is we overcomplicate things in our head a lot more than they really are in real life. All right, guys, I'm going to call it a night. Thank you for joining me for this live edition of Q&A with the coach. If you have questions for future editions of Q&A with the coach pre-recorded, leave them in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.